Hello, everyone. Jak Syn here on behalf of TorFiend.com and Future Daze, and today it is another exciting episode of Artist Interviews. Today, I am sitting with accomplished author J.L. Bourne. This man has created some of the most terrifyingly awesome worlds I have ever had the pleasure of reading. How you doing today, J.L.?
Hey, Jackson, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here on your show. I'm excited, and I'd like to ask how you're doing.
Well, I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day outside. Nice weather, beautiful. The birds are chirping. Nature's like out and about. It's just a great day. Yeah, it's hot, but a lot of people want to get outdoors and do some things. I know it's kind of hard right now. For me, earlier today, we took a little drive down the coast, got out, kind of recharged the batteries a little bit, really helped me out to kind of reset myself. So that was pretty good. It's just those little things here and there that make it all worth it. If we can appreciate those little things every day, kind of do those little things here and there, it really helps to center us in the world. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, I'm the same way. I try to get outside when I can. I'm down here in Florida, a little bit farther away, you know, from the better weather that you have out there. It's pretty humid out here, but I'm enjoying my time out here, staying away from the alligators and mosquitoes, and from any other little nasties that are floating around in the air out there, if you know what I mean, and still having a good time.
I know what you mean. I can only imagine it's got to be like really humid for you, like swelteringly humid, huh?
It's like your own sauna. Anytime you want to go outside, it's great.
Exactly, exactly. So today we're going to ask you a couple of questions and see where it goes from here. Are you ready to get into it?
I can't wait to hear what you got.
All right, here we go. What are three of your most memorable moments from your career as a writer?
There's a few moments in my career that I'll always remember. Finishing my first book, hitting the enter key and putting the triple asterisks at the end of my first book. That was an accomplishment because, just anybody out there that's written a book, you don't have to be popular or you don't have to be famous or anything. If you've just finished a book and you put all your sweat into that and you've worked for months on the keyboard typing away to hit that 80 to 100,000 words or maybe even more. Once you finish that, that's a great feeling. I won't ever forget that. The second great feeling was when I got a call from a publisher in New York, and I'm a country guy from Arkansas. I'm not up on my publishers. I don't know all the big names or anything like that, so I couldn't have told you what they were at the time. So I got a call from a company called Simon and Schuster wanting to buy the rights to my first franchise. And I didn't know who they were, and I should have known because they're a pretty big name. And I was talking to some friends and family, like, well, this company out of New York, they're Simon and Schuster. They want to look at the rights and buy my book. I don't know what I'm going to do though. And then their jaws would drop. What do you mean, Simon and Schuster? Are you kidding me? And they go to their bookshelf and they'd show me the gallery book or the kangaroo sitting on the spine of the books and tell me this is Simon and Schuster. And then when I realized that an actual publisher, one of the big publishers out of New York, was interested in my work, that was a big feeling for me. I was really proud of that moment, and that was pretty cool. And then the third moment that you asked me about was when I walked into this was Borders books a long time ago, right? Borders, and I would see my book on the shelf, and I thought, wow, man, my father was born in a dirt floor cabin in Arkansas, and I'm here in this bookstore with my name on a book and on the shelves here. And that was a very proud moment for me. And those are the three things that I think that just come to mind just off the cuff here as you ask and as I answer.
Those are some pretty awesome moments. I can only imagine what that was like to have Simon and Schuster contact you, about your first book, By Day Armageddon. I'm sure once you got that, it was like your jaw dropped on the floor right there, kind of going like, oh my God, I can't believe, they're contacting me to, put my book out to the entire world. That's just amazing. The worlds that you've created with your novels, they've really touched a lot of different people around the world. They're just some of the greatest things that I have ever had the chance to read.
I'm flattered by that and humbled, like I come from humble beginnings, and these worlds that I made on paper, I never thought they would really go anywhere. And I mean that honestly. I thought they were just going to be something that maybe I would write and my family members would read it and say, oh, that's pretty cool. and then that's how it would go. But I had no idea it would go as far as it did. I'm still amazed by it. I still can't believe it.
And then walking into a Borders bookstore and seeing your book, By Day Armageddon, like right there on the shelf, seeing that tangible copy of like your blood, sweat, and tears right there on the shelf, I'm sure that kind of brought a little tear to your eye. I know for me it would have.
It was awesome, and I still get positive feelings when I think about that. And I just got lucky, though, to be honest. I wrote a story that happened to resonate, I think, with people in that era of the zombie. And what I mean by that, and this is just off the cuff, this is just J.L. Bourne. I'm not referencing anyone else here when I say this. My opinion is, you had a zombie craze, I would say, from 2001 all the way to the year that Romero passed away. Rest in peace. May he rest in peace, George Romero. And that was the age of the zombie, in my opinion. And I got lucky, and I wrote a book that resonated during the age of the zombie between 2001 and George Romero's passing. And I think it did resonate with a few people, and I feel lucky. I feel lucky to have that.
And yes, it was a magical time. I mean, rest his soul, George A. Romero, one of the best horror directors of all time. I mean, the father of the modern zombie. I mean, right here, Night of the Living Dead, right here, one of my favorite films. My favorite Romero film of all time will always be Dawn of the Dead. I mean, I liked his other works, like Land of the Dead and Day of the Dead, but Dawn of the Dead, 78. It was adventurous, but it was also touching on a lot of things that, a lot of hidden things under the surface that not a lot of people picked up on, I think, until later on down the line. And your stories, building off that world that came before. I mean, it's just great to see that they're adding to this larger world that, we call the zombie world, the zombie universe, if you will.
I appreciate that. I mean, who would have thought, George A. Romero, when he made Night in black and white using Hershey's chocolate for blood, and the special effects and the budget he had would start a cult classic that would resonate throughout the decades, and then go on into the Dawn 78 version, where he was writing about consumerism and the Cold War on into Day of the Dead, and all those themes that span those decades were pure magic.
Yeah, he was really hitting on some real issues that were happening at the time in the world, like currently, that he snuck into his films. So I think that was one of the great things about George A. Romero, was that there was always a message behind the things that he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And not one person that I've ever ran across in all my time, where I would go to book signings or just talk to people at conventions and things like that. Not one time I ran into somebody that never thought about what they would do in a George A. Romero situation. If they were trapped in the mall or whatever. Everyone thinks they always what if that.
Yeah, that what if scenario. I think about it every once in a while, and yes, it's kind of fun to think about it, but then also too, I kind of get really freaked out. I kind of go, wow, what a terrifying world to live in. I mean, that would just be utterly terrifying to not be able to rest, at any time of the day, to always be looking over your shoulder, not knowing what's coming around the corner. Yeah, I mean, as fun as it is to think about that kind of stuff, it's also a very terrifying thing, I'm sure, to be in. I also kind of like to say this too, if you're in the Romero universe, I mean, you could probably make it, I mean, you could survive, because the zombies are, kind of slower and things like that, and things that move at a little bit slower pace. But if you're in like the Return of the Living Dead universe, you better throw it all out the window and give up right away or become a zombie, because I don't think you're going to be able to survive in that world.
Oh yeah, they all have their own little unique quirks. Like you said, the Return of the Living Dead. I mean, those zombies are almost unkillable, man. You got to atomize them. So yeah, that's definitely a scary thought.
Exactly. Creatively, what would you say is your favorite book that you've written?
So just weighing that right here on the spot, the first title that comes to my mind is Ghost Run, which is technically the fourth Day by Day Armageddon novel. And that one was written around the time I was, getting out of the military. And it was kind of like a goodbye to my previous life in the military, that the book. Because every time I write a book, it it kind of is an ode to the era that I'm in my life. And Ghost Run is kind of a goodbye to, me winding down my military career. And I'll put a lot of really hard work into that one. And that one will always resonate for me. It's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, you know what? To me, I mean, out of your By Day Armageddon series, like that one is one of my favorites for sure. Just everything that you talk about in that book, you know what I mean? It's different from the ones that came before in the sense that, like, I just feel it's more personal in a way, in my opinion, and it's like that's one of the things about the things that you write is that you really feel like you are right in the driver's seat. Like you are this character, you are this person dealing with this world. And I think a lot of things you touched on in that one was, the, of course, sense of isolation in a way, and, things changing, the world changing.
Yeah, the fact that the main character, which I didn't give him a name because he could be you, Jackson. He could be me. He could be anybody. That's why he doesn't have a name. And that's why I wrote it like that. But onto the world changing comment you made, you see the main character as he treks through the post-apocalyptic landscapes of the Gulf Coast and beyond, and we see where hurricanes had been and destroyed things, and the world is still moving on and changing, like you said, as he treks through these landscapes. And it makes the reader think, well, that's right. We wouldn't have any warning of hurricanes or any natural disasters. They would just happen whether we wanted them to or not. And this character is at the mercy of that.
Exactly. And you know what? You may find yourself walking across in that universe and seeing a giant tree with a whole bunch of zombies stuck in it and going, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, that was a pretty scary scene.
Yeah, but that book, Ghost Run, definitely one of my favorites. Definitely one of my girlfriend's favorites as well. Because her and I, we both love your novels, and we have them in regular reading format, but we also have them in audiobook as well. So at nighttime, it helps us go to sleep. We have to drift off to dreamland. Your books are the thing that we listen to before we go to sleep.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some scary parts in there that may make you not want to sleep. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? The thing about this is that when we've listened to when we've listened and read your books, like Day by Day Armageddon, your series there, great stuff. It helps us, go to sleep. But then, listening to like Tomorrow War, it's such on like a different plane where you kind of go, this really feels real, like even more real than the Day by Day Armageddon series to us.
Yeah, I wrote that one just as a warning, not really any like agenda or anything, but I wrote it as like a warning for the future, for people to think about. What if we go down a different path, or what if things go a different direction? I think that it's good to put some thought crime in the books every now and then, like kind of a tip of the hat to George Orwell's greats. And that's kind of the big push behind that series was, what if we did go down a wrong road and we ended up having to fight for our lives right here on American soil?
Yeah, that is very true. It's like you tend to think about stuff like that, and you definitely got us thinking about something like that. And that sometimes we're going to be in situations currently, kind of like what we're facing now on a different level. But months ago, when things started changing for us, and we had to start quarantining and staying home and stuff like that, I was like thinking about that. I was going, oh my God, this to me kind of feels like Tomorrow War in a way at the very beginning, where you start to see people, panicking. People are panicking over toilet paper.
Yeah, that's crazy. It just goes to show you the thin veneer that society has of civility. You take away maybe one creature comfort and people are okay, but then you start taking away 2 and 3, and they say we're only 4 meals away from anarchy at any given time. And that was another thought process when I wrote Tomorrow War and the sequel Serpent Road, is, there's a thin veneer on society.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Thank you for writing some really amazing things that have, for people out there, tend to make them think a little bit more about their current lives and their current situations. Because I think as human beings, we need to think a little bit more sometimes and really kind of dive into the what if scenario every once in a while to kind of help ground us in our reality.
Absolutely. And thanks for reading that one. I mean, I don't know how much more popular it was than the Day by Day series. You have escapism, which I would call the Day by Day as escapism, but then you've got people that read Tomorrow War and Serpent Road and like, wait, this isn't escapism anymore. This feels kind of real. So it pulls on different emotional levers. One of them is more of escapist, and one of them is more, hey, man, this is like a training manual or a warning type of book. So, and that's what led me into Trilobite.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another one. I'm currently in the middle of Trilobite right now, and it feels to me like a combination between Day by Day Armageddon and Tomorrow War, but futuristic, kind of having that Terminator kind of feel, but not having that Terminator kind of feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've loved the Terminator franchise for many years, Terminator 1 and 2 specifically. And everybody in my generation, I'm a Gen Xer, born in the mid 70s, and I grew up with Terminator in the 80s and Raiders of the Lost Ark and you name it, those types of things. It was defining the childhood, Cloak and Dagger, Goonies, and all that stuff. So that is in my DNA. And so that kind of bled over into Trilobite. If I know people out there can't see right now if I were to hold up a cover of Trilobite, but if you look at the cover, I asked the artist when he's like, "Hey, JL, what do you want this thing to look like?" So I had a conference with the artist of the cover, and I said I want it to look like an Atari 2600 game box. And he's like, "Okay, I see where you're going for here." And so I went retro, even with the Commodore 64 font on the cover of Trilobite, because I wanted the reader, when they picked it up, to understand that we're paying a little respect to the 80s color and brightness and just flamboyance on the cover. And then when we go in, there's a little bit of that DNA from the adventure movies of the 80s in there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I saw it, like when I got the alert, on Audible, and I was like, okay, Trilobite, it's like new JL Bourne. I was like, wow, this right here, looking at that cover, I go, this looks like a video game cover. This looks like a retro video game cover. I mean, me personally, I grew up, it's like, I was born in 86, grew up in the, I guess you could say early 90s, but like my love, I love, I'm, that have that passion for the 80s. I have that passion for the early 90s stuff too. It's like that's my childhood. So it's like a lot of these movies, like we're talking about Terminator and action movies, like the action movie genre, Lethal Weapon, all of those kinds of things that I was exposed to at a young age. It's like here you are as a young kid, you're watching these R-rated films, but they had these little nuances and little flavors here, and like the video games I used to play when I was younger too, it's like they were like adaptations of these R-rated properties. And when you get to, as you grow up, you can kind of appreciate these things as you get older, because you want to dive back into that area of what kind of influenced you as a child.
Come now to the days of high adventure. I know exactly what you mean. Reminds me of Conan and all those other movies too. Yeah, I have a fond memory of that era, growing up during that time and staying up too late, watching things I'm not supposed to watch. I've got a lot of good memories of that.
And it's like of course, as a kid, it's like they tell you don't watch that, you might be scared out of your wits. I remember one of the one of the movies that I saw when I was younger, of course, was one of the movies that kind of scared the crap out of me, was The Thing. I watched that movie and I was like, oh my god. And now as an adult, I rewatch and I go, this right here is some of the best like creature effects that I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, the Carpenter's is the best. You're right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry about that. But John Carpenter is the best. That's the best version. You're right. Those effects were just chilling and terrifying and nightmarish.
Yeah.
And MacReady, the character, that was a great, well-written character, well-acted character. I've always enjoyed the MacReady character. And, some of your viewers in the comments, I've got something for anybody that's read Shattered Hourglass. I have a character that's loosely based on MacReady and Shattered Hourglass. You can guess the answer below, and I'll get on there and I'll tell you if you're right. I'll log on to the comments.
Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to finding out about that. And it's like, that was the thing about the movie The Thing. Everybody in that movie, you know, it's like, because usually in horror movies, like everybody's always running around, like, you know, not knowing what to do. Everybody in The Thing, like including McCready, like, you know, the character of Kurt Russell, like knew what they had to do to
Yeah.
stop everything, you know, and nobody was like, they were just scientists trying to do the right thing.
Yep, that scene. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That scene where they're all standing in almost like a circle out in the snow, and I don't remember exactly how it starts. He said something to the effect, "I know if you were all those things, and you just attacked me right now." That dialogue in that scene was just chilling and magic right there. That was a great thing. And what do you think about the end? I know this is an old movie. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I want to let everybody know, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it. But someone said, I think I've read somewhere, that you can tell by the sparkle reflection of light in their eyes at the very end which one is the thing.
So, I mean, at the end of the film, like when these two are sitting across from each other, I don't know, it's hard to say. I've heard people say that it was, you know, this was some person's theory. They were saying that, well, maybe they're both the thing. But I think that my own personal opinion is, I think it was probably Childs at the end. I think it probably was. But then again, it could have been Kurt Russell's character. It could have been, you know, it could have been him. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So you're saying it's Childs, and I think you're probably basing that just off the law of tropes, maybe. But I don't know. I don't know. There may be some credence to the eye reflection theory, but I heard that one of the people that worked on the film debunked that. I know that I don't think that they're both infected or they're both the thing, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have that dialogue at all. They would just know it chemically, because I think that two of these creatures can chemically, or they can telepathically communicate to each other. So I don't think they're both infected. I would just have to toss a coin on this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. We would have to toss a coin on that one. But you know what was funny is that, did you ever see the prequel movie that came out? I think it was like 2011 or whatever.
I did.
I don't know. I'm a practical effect guy, but when I watch that film, it's like, you know, if you can kind of like, I can kind of give it some points on its story, kind of a little bit. But you know, when they were doing the whole thing with the metal earrings, you know, and you know, the guy at the end is like, spoiler alert, you're you're the thing because your earring's gone, you know. So I don't know. It's hard to say at the end of the thing. But
Yeah.
who do you guys think it was? I want to hear in the comment section.
Tell us down in the comments. We want to know what you think.
Exactly. What was the drive behind getting you into becoming a writer?
Okay, I get this one every now and then, but not frequently. So the question is, what made you start doing this, or what drove you to do it? And honestly, this answer is not a very happy or positive answer, but it is what it is. So I was in the military during 9/11, okay? And it was a terrible tragedy for those of you out there that were not around during that time, or maybe some of you out there that were around during that time, or maybe too young to know what was going on, or maybe some of you like me that were old enough to know what was going on and were affected by it. It was a terrible time in our country's history, and I was in the military, and I happened to lose a friend at the Pentagon, and all this stuff kind of affected me, and to a point where I thought, you know, man, this is just, I need to figure out a way to kind of deal with this situation that we've been put into as a country. And I started writing around that time. By Day Armageddon 1 after 9/11. That's what did it.
Yeah, you know, that that time, you know, for us as a country, that was a very hard time. I remember exactly where I was. You know, I was actually homesick. It was like my second day of being sick home from school, and you know, I woke up and this was all over the news, and I just couldn't help but think to myself, like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. Like, it was so surreal. To a lot of people out there, I know there are a lot of, you know, people nowadays, like, who have never experienced that. But I mean, are experiencing a pandemic right now, you know, which is, you know, crazy. Never thought that would happen. But, you know, 9/11 to me was, you know, just that. Doesn't matter where you were in the world, you know, that moment, when that moment happened, it happened, and it changed everybody. I remember going to New York City for the first time back in 2012. And when I went to New York City, I remember going to Ground Zero. I remember going to, you know, when they built the new tower and everything, and just standing there and kind of going like, oh my God, like in this area 11 years ago, this happened. The world was forever changed at that moment in time. And you're right, like dealing with that time, that moment in time, I'm sure for you was a way to kind of cope and help you through dealing with that loss. Am I right?
Yeah, it was. It was just a way to kind of deal with everything that was going on. It wasn't just me going through it. It was the whole country. We were all very affected by it, as you remember. The whole zeitgeist was affected by this tragedy, from comedy to action to music to everything any artistic outlet you can think of. I believe personally was affected in the United States, at least, by this tragedy.
Yes, it was, and it took us. It took us years to be better. But I think, some of the great things that did come out of that was that we were more aware. We were more on guard. Like we knew that things like this could happen. When we said, you know what, we're going to be better prepared as we move into the future. But I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
What are you looking forward to accomplishing the most moving forward?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing you mean artistically. I mean, I've got a lot of life goals. I think I'd like to go back into one of the worlds that I've written previously. There will be a second Trilobite. I'll say that right here on this show. It's not fully announced everywhere. So I will say that the title for the next Trilobite will be Remote 5. That's the title. And I will say that Audible is recording it now with several different voice actors like the first Trilobite. And I will say that they're targeting a release of October of 2020 this year. So we're looking for a good Halloween release for Remote 5, which is the sequel to Trilobite.
Well, that right there is pretty awesome. It's everybody out there. Hey, you heard it right here first. Another Trilobite, Remote 5, coming out in October. I mean, that is a good target date. You know what I mean?
I think that's good. People like to sit down and get warm by the fire wherever they might live, and just take in the fall as we head into winter. And that's the time where people like to tune in and watch scary shows and be scared. So I've written a pretty scary sequel to Trilobite that I hope people will enjoy. And then after that, who knows what's next? I mean, I've got 3 different universes that I've built over here, sitting on my desk in front of me, and any one of them I could go back into. I know I'm probably going to write a sequel to one of these 3 universes. I just don't know which one yet after Trilobite.
You know what? Your Trilobite universe, it's like me being in, like halfway through it right now. It takes a hold and like really grabs a hold of you. And it has that fantasy element to it, but it's really just it kind of just sucks you in, like with By Day Armageddon, it sucks you in too, but Trilobite, it's just, it really takes you into that new world, that new futuristic world. And I think having the sequel come out in October, I think is going to be a scary sequel to that. I'm looking forward to reading that.
I'm excited. I mean, the voice talent is great. I've been, going back and forth with them about how to pronounce certain things, because as you know, some things are kind of military oriented and some things are different pronunciations. So they'll call me or text me or email me and ask, well, how do I say this? How do I say that? And then we'll have a conversation about it. But it's great working with all the voice actors on this. Audible has been a great publisher to work with for this series, because as you might know, Trilobite was an Audible exclusive, meaning that they got first dibs, first 6 months of exclusive distribution on it, and they've taken that and they've really put a lot of their effort into that to make it great. You might have a favorite character, those of you out there that have listened to it. A lot of people say Alpha Override is one of their favorite characters in that Trilobite Audible production. So chime in below. Who's your favorite character if you've read it?
Exactly. Chime in below. Tell us who your favorite character is. The way that you write your books, you get very technical with your writing, and it really kind of makes you feel like, hey, I feel like I'm this person here stripping apart this weapon, oiling it with the oil, putting it all back, together again, or I'm the one who's putting on this exosuit to fight robots, or I feel like I'm the guy sitting inside of the train car eating chicken noodle soup. I like these little nuances that you put into your books where they get very technical and very hands-on with a lot of things you're doing, because it's like certain books that you read, you kind of go like, oh well, Rob loaded up his gun and then cocked the thing and started, firing his weapon. But you kind of go like, I racked the slide and like checked the magazine and all this stuff, and you really kind of get into that. And that's one of the things that I love about your books, is that you have these little nuances where you dive right into it.
Yeah, I get some criticism on both ways with those details. Some people that don't like that, and some people that do like that. The way I try to write it is, I want, like I said, with the first Day by Day Armageddon, that's why I didn't name the character, because I want the person reading it to kind of feel like they're there. And I kept that theme as we moved into Tomorrow War with Max Redacted. We never know his last name. And now we move on into Trilobite, where we do know the characters' names, but I still kept that theme of detail to where if you were reading it or listening to it on Audible, you would feel like you were putting that exosuit on and running 30 miles an hour to try to get away from a giant homebrew hunter killer.
Yeah, you know what? And those are some scary beasts that you've written about in Trilobite. There, some scary beasts. I mean, I would hate to be out in the forest at nighttime listening to those sounds in the forest. I would hate to be out there during that time, because that would be a scary world to live in.
The thing that scares me the most, Jackson, is the fact that we don't know what we're creating today, like in 2020. Okay, I don't want to sit here and sound an alarm like Elon Musk does sound the alarm about AI and robotics. He's right to do so. But I feel like if I sound the alarm too much, that people will just won't, it'll feel like I'm crying wolf. But when you create something, let's say the average person walking around in the world has, we'll just say 100 IQ, just to make it an even number. Let's say the average person in the world has 100 IQ. When you create something that has a 10,000 IQ, there is no way you can predict what it's going to do, or what it wants to do, or what its goals are. Something like that terrifies me, going up against something with a 10,000 IQ.
Yeah, I mean, it's unpredictable, and I think us as human beings, like as we progress in the world and we continue to create, I think there is such a thing as going overboard, creating something that could, God forbid, replace us as people. That's one of the things that kind of, when I think about it, kind of scares me, where I kind of go like, hey, we're messing around with some really interesting things that, yes, they're interesting at the time, but they can become very terrifying if they go left unchecked.
I agree. That's why we need to, look at some of the science fiction and things that have come before and pay attention to it, right? I mean, I bet the people in Trilobite wish they would have watched Terminator a few more times. I don't know.
Exactly.
Something like that, and maybe they read Asimov's Laws of Robotics a few more times, things like that. So I think we should, as a society and as a scientific community, those that are into robotics and things like that should look at even the art forms that are created and think about those as they move forward with these creations, and think about how we can keep them from doing the types of things that we see in Trilobite.
Exactly. And I want to touch on this point here really quick. When we go back to Ghost Run here, it's like, I just love Checkers. I gotta say, I just love Checkers. I love how you wrote Checkers into the book, where it's like, even though the character in the book is isolated, yes, he still has Checkers to kind of keep him company.
Oh yeah. So I'd say maybe a small fraction of a percentage of the people know this fact, but Checkers was a real dog. He was my dog, and we had him for many years. He died of old age, and Annabelle from the other books was also my dog, and she also died of old age. So my beloved animals, I've always had a tradition to put them in there in some way, just to kind of like as a memory, because they'll always be, in the book. Library of Congress will always have a copy of their names in there. They're immortal pretty much now. So Checkers was based off a real dog, and the thing with that Garmer unit from Ghost Run, that was robotics done ethical and correct, right? I wrote about how we can utilize these things as tools to help us. And I think, that was back when Boston Dynamics, that was before the Spot was running around on Unbox Therapy on YouTube. And before that, that Spot was a big mainstream thing. But I wanted to write about how it could be used for good.
And it was used for good. I remember seeing the videos, seeing Spot, and then I was also watching. Somebody did a funny video where they were actually kicking it, but they added the voice to the actual robotic dog. So he was going, "Ow, stop kicking me!" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of funny to watch. as human beings, we should be creating technology to be used as a tool to help propel us forward. I think with a lot of things that we develop as human beings, I think sometimes we get, we kind of, I guess it kind of brings it back to that quote from Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. I know I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit here, but he was saying in there, he's like, you spend all this time thinking about what you create instead of how you were creating it or why you were creating it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember that quote. Yeah. You've spent all this time thinking of whether or not you could, and you didn't stop to think about whether or not you should.
Yeah. And I think as human beings, it's like, well, we have created some amazing things. It's like we should always keep in the back of our mind, hey, ask yourself sometimes, should I be creating this? Is this okay to be doing this? Like, is it, I don't know. But all I know is people out there, whatever you're developing, whatever you're creating, do it with the best of intentions.
Absolutely.
My girlfriend wanted to ask this question to you. She wants to know, will we ever get another sequel to Day by Day Armageddon? Will we ever dive back into that world again? Is that something that will happen?
I can't say that it won't happen, but I can say that it does take a pretty big emotional toll on me to go back in there and do my readers the best possible service I can do, because I have to top Ghost Run, and that is going to be something that's probably impossible to do, to top Ghost Run. So if I do go back to that universe, it's going to have to go follow Ghost Run and also Gray Fox, and take it places unique and different that does a service to the reader, because that's who I'm working for. That's who I care about, is my reader. I care about the characters and the universe, and I want to make sure I do that universe a service and not try to cash in. I could have written 10 or 15 Day by Days by now, but they would not have been the quality that I would expect of myself. To me, everybody likes money, sure, but I could never betray the universe, any of the universes I've created, and put out something just to vanity press myself out some more Amazon Kindle money. That's not what makes me tick. I don't really care about that. I want to make the story right, and that would be very difficult undertaking to do a Day by Day 5 after Ghost Run. Not saying it's never going to happen. Not saying I haven't thought about it a lot. I'm just saying that is a big challenge.
Definitely, you're definitely right. Us as artists out there, anybody who creates, whether it's writing, whether it's creating music, whether it's drawing, doesn't matter. Whatever you do out there, creatively, it's like, I know for myself, doing these artist interviews, I love doing them. I love creating my own music too. It's like whenever I work on my own music, it's like there's this attention to detail that you put into your stuff. You pour your blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's like when you put it out into the world, it's like you can look at it and put it up on the shelf and kind of go, you know what, I did that, I created that, I put my heart and soul into that, and I have no regrets about it. I like this term. It's like, don't half-ass it, full-ass it, all the way.
That's right. I mean, why else do it? Why else spend 8 to 12 months in your writing attic if you're going to put out something that's not to your best possible effort?
Exactly. And you know what too, one of the things that I did want to add is like, your third book you did in the Day by Day Armageddon series, Shattered Hourglass. That one, it's like you had this first person perspective, you know what I mean? And then you branched out into like a big dynamic story. What made you want to break out into multiple areas?
Well, the main reason was that I could not tell the worldwide story in the first person, and it would be disingenuous to do a bunch of first persons from everybody in Shattered Hourglass. So we have all these characters in the first person, because are they all going to keep journals? No. So
No.
I had to make a decision how I could further the story to let the reader know what the world was going, what was it looking like around the world in this universe. And I had to make the tough decision to go with the more traditional novel format. And that was met with resistance, as you can see on Amazon reviews, 3.5, maybe 4 stars, something like that, instead of my usual ratings. Some people, it jarred them because they didn't like that change in perspective they were used to from Day by Day and Beyond Exile. ultimately it was no choice on the different format with Shattered Hourglass, so I could further the story. And then there's a vanity reason as well. If I'm being honest, I also wanted to prove to myself that I could write outside of that niche successfully and further the story. So there's the primary reason was to tell the story properly, and the secondary reason was to prove to myself and to some of the readers that I wasn't just stuck in that one format.
Yeah, and it's such a big book. I loved that book, Shattered Hourglass. I loved it. I loved how you kind of opened up the universe and did it from multiple points of view. And you can't with showing how big of a world that it become by the third book. Yeah, you really couldn't have done it as a first person, with how many things it touched on. And whenever I read it, I read it as like I'm watching a movie. To me, it really feels like a movie. Like I feel like, hey, I'm on the aircraft carrier and there's zombies everywhere, and then like, hey, you're on a submarine over here, and then it's just a big world. So I understand why you had to kind of break from the first person view and just kind of go into multiple areas, because it really is a huge story that helped drive it forward.
Yeah, and there was no other way to do it, much to a few hardcore fans' chagrin. There was a few people out there, that were really upset by it. And I hopefully that by the now, it's been years. Hopefully by now they look back on it, just like we look back on some things that are cult classics now. Hopefully they can look back and forgive that and see the reason that I had to do that.
But you know what? I'm all for it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I appreciate that, Jackson.
What positive message would you give your fans out there?
Okay, so we're in a situation now, and at least I know you've got probably international viewers here on YouTube, and they're going through a lot of the same things we are here in the United States. I would say we have half of you out there introverts, half of you out there extroverts. So this thing that's going on in the world right now is affecting half of you more than the other. I would say do what you can to not get into my book per se, get any kind of world that you want to find out there, and go find yourself a good book. Take a break from this pandemic stuff and make your mind journey somewhere else for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. And get out there and be safe, and get outside as much as you can safely. But give yourself that mind candy, that mind break, to get out of the world we're in now and take a break from it and go to another universe. I've been reading a book myself. It's called Wolf and Iron, and it's a book about a character. His name's GB, and he's on an electric bicycle, makes friends with a wolf along the way. And it's a post-apocalyptic type book, and it's very entertaining. So I'm taking my breaks too. Don't think that just because I write these universes that I can just go into my own little universe and not even think about this stuff. I still have to take the escape myself and check out every now and then. It's by Gordon R. Dixon. If you guys want to check it out, it's probably out of print now. You can probably pick it up at the library or something. But I have to have my escape as well. So you're probably the same way, huh, Jackson?
Yeah, I have my escape too. It's like right now it's really important, for us to do that. It's like, I know me personally, it's like I love to, I use my escape is to in your books. That's where I like to go. I like to dive into your books. That's my escape from this world that we are living in right now. It's our new normal that we have to deal with. But it's like also my escape too is creating my music. We're doing these artist interviews because these are my ways to branch out into the kind of world that I want to build for my own self. I think a lot of the time a lot of people right now around the world, like, we forget sometimes that we have to do the self-care. We need to take care of ourselves mentally. Yes, physically, but a lot of the time we need to take care of ourselves mentally. And right now, just because we're not, constantly like grinding away every single day, that's okay. That is okay. Because right now, we need to take this time to reset with a lot of the things and work on the things that we want to work on to help propel us forward. So whether or not that's working on the things that you have to work on, or doing some self-care by diving into a different world, is what you were talking about. Whatever we have to do, we need to make sure that we make those top priorities.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's all kinds of media out there that will help you do that. Books, movies, I'm a big fan of video games, as you know, Jackson. I like to play. Sometimes I involve fans with that. It's a lot of fun to interact with the fans while you play video games. So my passions are the ones I just mentioned to kind of get my mind off what's going on.
Definitely, definitely. And me, I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil. I love the Resident Evil universe. Huge fan of the Resident Evil video games. A lot of people out there, if you didn't know that already, I absolutely love the Resident Evil stuff. So every once in a while, or whenever I can, I just pop Resident Evil in one of these really different Resident Evil games that I own, and I just go on a journey. You know what I mean? I just go on that journey. And if I have to kill a couple of zombies to blow off some steam, so be it.
Yeah, I love the remake for Resident Evil 3. It was great. And the RE2 remake. Those were just well done. Well, RE2 more so. 3 seemed a little short, but definitely RE2.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like I felt like Resident Evil 2, it's like it felt ominous, it felt dark, it felt scary, it felt mysterious, but Resident Evil 3 was like high octane. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There were those parts in Resident Evil 3 where you're kind of going like, you feel like you were definitely in a war zone. It's like constantly go, 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 go. I mean, there were little breaks here, but Resident Evil 2 is definitely a little bit, calmer than Resident Evil 3. But hey, I think they were, you have that, you need that sometimes. You need like high octane sometimes, and then sometimes you need little breaks here and there. But I think that they did such a great job with these remakes. The people who worked on them, top notch stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially too. It was just wonderfully done, and the graphics were outstanding. I had a good time with both those games. Guiltily in RE3, I did experience farm in the hospital so I could cheat and get the rocket launcher.
Well, you know what? You know what I would love to see? I would love to see a Day by Day Armageddon video game because that
Yeah,
is a world I would love to live in.
I think that would be awesome. I wish there was a developer out there that wanted to work with me on that because that would be remarkable. I would love to work on that. That would be great.
Well,
And
hey, everybody out there, right here, you heard it. If you were a developer and you were looking for an amazing world to discover and explore, dive into Day by Day Armageddon. Dive into that series. And hey, I would love to see a video game of that world, because it is utterly terrifying, but it's also very adventurous.
yeah, I could see some of the chapters now. What do you think? Open world or you want it linear? What would you like?
Um, I mean, open world's cool, but I think like open world within reason. You know what I mean? The open world just in that Gulf Coast area, I think, or in Texas, in that Gulf Coast area, I think you could do all of the novels within one entire game if you wanted to, or within different chapters if you wanted to, or you can make it just a game that just continues on.
Yeah, I could see both ways, like a Call of Duty style chapter where you're in the scene, one of the main, like the more popular scenes and chapters in the book, like the tower scene from Day by Day 1, where they have to parachute off the tower to get away. That kind of thing I could see as cinematically in a game.
Yeah, or being trapped in the Tallahassee Capitol building, having to go all those stories all the way up to the top, you know what I mean, and trying to get down on a rope, I mean, that's like, whenever I read that part of Ghost Run, I go, oh my God, like, good thing that level 12 was clear and there was just a leather chair there, you know what I mean?
Oh, I had to go to the Capitol to research that because, as you know, some of us writers, we like to go to the places and see what it looks like to get inspiration. And I didn't just think about it that way. I had to go down there and look at it to get the inspiration.
Yeah, you know what? Hey, if as a video game, it's like, if you're the main character and you're traveling to like any major cities, you better make sure they didn't drop a nuke on those cities, or else you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah, that's why I like to start my later day by day books about grab your gas mask, load up your carbines, and let's go because the cities are in bad shape.
Exactly. You know what? It's funny because like me being a fan of your books, I tell some of the other people that I come in contact with, if you want to read a book, read this series of books. When they're like, well, what makes it different? I go, well, they drop nuclear weapons on major cities and create irradiated undead that are fast and smart, and they can't die for like 30 years. I mean, what's more terrifying than that?
Yes, the nuke angle. I wanted to because if you think about it, you remember the Romero where you have the scientist with the one eye and he's broadcasting in Dawn of the Dead. they're in the mall, and he's like, dummies,
Yes.
dummies, dummies. That character. And they're like, well, what do you recommend we do? He's like, we could drop nukes on the major cities. He says that, and then they all like throw virtual tomatoes at him,
Yeah.
metaphorically, like, no, we're not going to do that, But when I was a kid, I watched that. Well, why didn't they drop nukes on the major cities? And so that kind of affected me to think about that when I wrote Day by Day. Like, I think we should drop nukes on the major cities, see what happens.
Yeah.
And what happened was something bad.
Yeah. Yeah. You ended up doing more damage than good.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? One of the things I always wonder about is I wonder what happened to California. I wonder if we'll ever find out what happened to California, the West Coast. You
Well,
never know.
if you think about it, I don't want to affect the lore of Day by Day, but I thought about that a few times. I have family in California as well, so I thought about it. And the temperate climate there is an advantage. It's an advantage. Of course, some of the cities got the nuke treatment, yes, but California's a big state. All right, not everybody got the nuke treatment, just the major cities, right? So there's a lot of places out there to survive in California, and you've got the advantage of not having terrible climate. So I think California, in a post-pandemic Day by Day Armageddon universe, I think you would be in better shape there than you would be in a hurricane or a tornado alley or somewhere so far north you get 10 feet of snow. I think you'd be better off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, it's like if we have an earthquake, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Just don't be in a big building.
Exactly. Don't be in a big building. And as we draw this interview to a close, I just want to say that it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. Thank you to everybody who tuned in to watch this interview. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our Fiend YouTube channel as we have many more awesome artist interviews on the way. So thank you so much, J.L. Bourne, for sitting with us, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Jackson.
And to everybody out there, be sure to check out J.L. Bourne's amazing works, some really amazing worlds this man has created. Day by Day Armageddon series, Tomorrow Wars series, and his newest series, Trilobite, because they are some terrifyingly awesome worlds. So be sure to check them out on Audible, paperback versions, or digital reads. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.